Growing up, I was a fan of the show Antique Roadshows. I know that's a weird way to start this video, but just hang with me for a moment. I promise I'm going somewhere with this. And if you're not familiar with the show, people will show up on the show taking items that have been in their family for a while, maybe family heirlooms that have been there for generations, and they want to know what that item is worth. So they go seek someone out outside of themselves who would determine the value of the item they brought. Oftentimes, people are surprised with the amount of value or worth of something they've brought to the show, and others simply just walk away with just ordinary junk. And I think as musicians, artists, creatives, we can oftentimes fall into the same routine where we're seeking validation for who we are. What's the value and the worth of ourselves from the art that we're bringing to the table? And that's what happens when our identity is rooted in the music that we're making, is rooted in the art that we're making. And I know it's tough because oftentimes we feel like the art and the music that we're creating is an extension of ourselves. This is like a part of me, and we oftentimes feels like that. But when our identity is rooted in that art, when it's rooted in the music that we're making, we're desperately seeking validation. We desperately seek our value from that. So that when those don't like the music we're making, when we don't amount to getting the amount of streams that we want, when we don't get enough reposts or likes on the day we release our single, then we just feel unsatisfied, deflated, or oftentimes defeated. And that's because we are finding our value and our sense of value from our music. So I just want to spend a little time, digging in, pressing in a little bit more on this topic, because it's not just something that I walk through and deal with as a creative, as a music producer, but it's something that I oftentimes come across a lot in conversations, specifically in those that I'm mentoring and those in the Beat Academy group. It's just something that I oftentimes find somebody struggling with. And it's, when I don't get validation from my music, my self-worth is just questionable. And so I want to encourage you. I want to actually, bring back some freedom in your life and some liberty to just explore and appreciate the pursuit of the passion that you have for making music without the limitations of seeking value from your music. And so this is something I struggled with a lot. You see, when I started making music, just came from a place of like, man, this is really, I love it. I'm passionate about it. Like, I noticed it was different for me than it was from all my other friends who just didn't have the same drive and ambition I had for wanting to pursue music. So I dove headfirst into it, loved it, and then just grew my skill set more and more. And then I started to realize, without knowing it, that when I would get rejected from my music, it was such a personal blow to me. It was like, man, I don't feel good enough. And when that happened enough times, I started to feel like, man, I don't think I'm good enough. My value is really anchored in the art that I'm creating. And the reality is this: it is a subjective thing to make this art. And so I think the intention was, when I start seeking approval of others through my music, I will never be satisfied. And I experienced this firsthand when I was able to actually achieve one thing I thought would finally satisfy my soul, and that was making it to the Grammys, actually physically getting nominated and going there. And so got there, and what dawned on me the next day was, now what? I thought, but going to the Grammys, that was the pinnacle of validation. You've been nominated not just by others, but by the secret academy that has deemed you worthy to be an artist, but yet left still unsatisfied the next day, because I thought that once I achieved that goal, that mile marker, I would find the validation I was desperately seeking. And what it did was it removed my focus. It took my eyes off just that I am able to create. And the reward of that alone just is enough. And so it really sobered me up to realize, am I making this so that I can seek approval of others through it? Or am I making music just for the sheer fact that it's something I love doing? And that alone is the reward. And so that starts to untangle the root of my identity being in my music. And the biggest catalyst for me was when when my worldview changed. You see, after the Grammys, I became a Christian, and that new worldview, that shift in the lens in which I view the world around me, allowed me to see that my identity was being placed in my music. And so my value was no longer from what I was doing or my performance, but my value came from my creator, right? So I'm no longer looking for things to satisfy or to determine where my worth comes from. I'm valued beyond measure. I was worth dying for. So that allowed me to get back in touch with where I started making music in the first place. And that was, I love making it. And I also love the pursuit of getting better at making it. And there was so much freedom there in the pursuit of just growing and maturing and being discipled and being like molded into bettering my craft. But I wasn't getting better at my craft for the intention of like, I need to seek the approval of others. It was just a genuine, like, I want to grow because I want to better express who I am and express where I'm at, express what I'm going through the means of making music. So if you're dealing with creation fatigue or unvalued or a bit of despair in this journey that you're on with making music, can I challenge you and ask this question? Are you wrapping your identity, your sense of worth and value in the music that you're making? Because if you are, then you're waiting on others to place that value on you so that you can walk away from the roadshow feeling like $1,000,000. And so what I'd like to do in upcoming videos is, yes, explore more of this identity crisis that we oftentimes find ourselves in as a musician, as a producer, as an artist. I would like to explore some of these things and anchor them with some words of wisdom that I myself has learned throughout my years of doing this professionally, but also just from others pouring their wisdom into my life. I want to be able to kind of flush this out into like this series that I like to walk through in figuring out where identity should come from. So, hey, if this resonated with you, if this is something that encouraged you, let me know. I'd love to communicate and chat with you in the comments below.